Hello YouTubers, it's a new year, it's 2018, and that means it's a new year and a time for new videos. I can't believe it's the future year from Terminator Salvation. So in this first action reaction of the year, I'm going to be going over Terminator Salvation. Now, Terminator Salvation is the third sequel to The Terminator. You have The Terminator from 1984, Terminator 2 Judgment Day from 1991, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines in 2003, and then sometime later in 2009, you have Terminator Salvation. This is directed by Mick G., stars Christian Bale as John Connor, Sam Worthington as Marcus Wright, Anton Yelchin as Kyle Reese, with Moon Bloodgood and Common, as well as Bryce Dallas Howard. You also have brief appearances from Michael Ironside and Helena Bonham Carter. So, Terminator Salvation, how is this? This is a very different Terminator movie, but I must say, this film kind of gets a bad rap. This film is really one of the best Terminator sequels, in my personal opinion. And the reason why that is that it's totally different, yet does something different to progress the story. It kind of pays homage. It's not exactly the future we see. It's before that future. And originally, Nick Stahl and Claire Danes were supposed to come back as John Connor and Katherine Brewster. The rights were sold to another studio, and the sequel to Terminator 3 was kind of in production hell for a bit. It wasn't until the Helicon company got the rights, they hired Mick G, and we got Christian Bale, hot off the success of The Dark Knight, playing John Connor in this. And this is a continuation of Terminator 3. They recast John Connor, but Judgment Day in this happened in 2003. We get a brief nod to that with Marcus Wright's character. Sam Worthington was in this right before Avatar. And Sam Worthington, he does a great job in this. Marcus Wright really is the main protagonist of the story. And it starts with his execution. You find out he's a murderer, and it starts with him being put to sleep. But before that, he was visited by Helena Bonham Carter, who's dying of cancer. She's a professor, a researcher, and you find out she works for Cyberdyne Systems. He signs an agreement to donate his body to science. He dies. And then we cut to 2018 and this future war. John Connor is not the Messiah savior as he was foretold to be. No, he's not even a leader yet. He leads a small faction, but nobody really believes him. He still has to answer to superiors. So this is a very different future than the one we saw in the previous Terminator films. And I love it. The opening is fantastic. A desert war film. This is almost like a loose Mad Max movie. It really is. It's like Terminator and Mad Max had a baby, with a little bit of Matrix in there. Christian Bale, he sounds a lot like Batman, but you know what? I think he does a great job. You can tell he's definitely a more hardened John Connor. He's not that soft John Connor. He's not that John Connor who doesn't want to fight. No, he's the John Connor that's the leader of the Resistance, or is going to be. And you can definitely see that in Christian Bale's performance. And we cut to Marcus Wright waking up. He doesn't know who he is, where he is, and it's almost like an Oz tale. He's in this post-apocalyptic world. And Mick G did such a great job at creating this atmosphere. I miss the fact that there's laser weapons, it's dark. It's not like the future we saw, but it's before that future. And in the other movies, we never really saw a transition to our modern world to the future world, and this is kind of like the in-between. The Terminator sequels, what they suffer from most is that they set up a lot of brilliant ideas, but they never get to explore those ideas. But Terminator Salvation as a standalone film is pretty good and has a lot more nods to the first two movies and is much more respectful than some of the other sequels. He ends up meeting a younger Kyle Reese played by Anton Yelchin. Wow, Anton Yelchin, may he rest in peace. Such a great young talent. He sounds exactly like Michael Biehn's Kyle Reese. I really wish they got him in Terminator Genisys. Anton Yelchin is one of the best parts about this movie as a younger Kyle Reese. He really gets to show his acting chops here. He not only looks like Michael Biehn, he sounds like him. And you can totally believe that this is going to be the future protector of Sarah Connor that we saw in the original Terminator. So they're on this journey. Meanwhile, John Connor is looking for ways to destroy Skynet. There is a rumor that there may be this signal that can end the machines, and he tests it out. But he ends up getting a message relayed. They find out that they're ahead of the cybernetic research. You find out that the T-800s are far ahead in schedule to be created, and John Connor realizes that since the past changed, this future has changed as well. Everything is accelerated faster. It's not like the future his mother warned him about. And he finds out that Skynet knows that Kyle Reese is his father, which adds another threat. It's almost like a protecting movie, except it's without time travel. So it's entirely in one timeline, and that makes it kind of great because it has a lot of the same elements of protecting an individual from being terminated, but without the use of time travel like the previous films. That's something that's very different and unique about this film, is that it's all in the future, all in 2018. Terminator Salvation is a really, really good movie. Danny Elfman's score is fantastic. That opening is very reminiscent of the first Terminator opening. And then you have Rooster by Alice in Chains, such a great moment. But eventually, Marcus loses Kyle Reese through the machines. You get to see them put into this camp of just basically being cattle for the machines. It's really crazy. He ends up losing track of Kyle, and he comes across a pilot who crashed, Moon Bloodgood. You find out she's with TechCom, the Resistance, and she basically takes him to John Connor. They go through a mine, and there's a twist of Marcus Wright being a machine himself, an infiltrator for Skynet, and he's unaware of that. And there's some great acting here between Christian Bale and Sam Worthington. You really get to feel for Sam Worthington, as he doesn't know he's a machine. He knows he died, he doesn't know how he got up, but him finding out he's a machine was just a horrific scene. And there's a lot of throwbacks to Terminator 2 with the way John Connor feels about this machine. Ultimately, Marcus Wright helps John Connor get Kyle Reese from the Skynet base, and you find out that it's all a trap to kill John Connor. A very elaborate twist. Now, this movie does have its slow moments. It has some great action, but there's a lot of jumbled moments where it's not entirely bad. It's just like, it's almost like you're seeing a series of scenes without any type of flow in the narrative, so to speak. At least with Marcus Wright for a while. John Connor, there is a bit of plot. But what makes this movie is how it pays off in the end. Eventually, all those random scenes aren't really so random. They all tie up to a meeting, tie out to some type of climax, and the payoff to this movie is what really makes it worthwhile. You also have a slight nod to You Could Be Mine by Guns N' Roses, and this John Connor actually feels like the John Connor from T2, you know? He's not like that whiny, just unsure of himself John Connor, and again, some of that is because he's accepted his destiny as this person. Bryce Dallas Howard, I don't really like her acting. She's okay as Katherine Brewster. Katherine Brewster kind of takes a seat back in this. I like Moon Bloodgood and Sam Worthington's chemistry. All the actors, the effects, they introduced some new machines here, and Stan Winston did some of the effects, or at least the designs, before he passed away, so his crew finished this film in memory of him, and I miss him. There's a lot of cool designs, some inspired by Transformers, a lot of different type of machines, motorcycle machines. Overall, it's a very different apocalyptic vibe for Terminator, but something about this one still felt original, still felt refreshing. It was still a step forward. And I have to say I like it because it's not like Terminator 3 or Genesis in a way where they basically redo a lot of previous narrative plot devices from the first two movies. No, this one feels like a natural progression. This one feels like it's actually trying to go somewhere and do something different than the other ones. And I think this is probably one of the best, if not the best, sequel to Terminator since Terminator 2. I really do. Mick G surprised me. I was a fan of his in Charlie's Angels. It's kind of a guilty pleasure. This Means War. But Terminator Salvation is a very different movie, and he does have a lot of love for the first film. And a little bit of the second. It definitely had that grittiness of the first movie. I liked how they used animatronics for the Terminators. It made them really scary and bulky. Arnold's cameo is fantastic. The CGI has aged really bad now, but that was so unexpected, and the fact that he fights a T-800 is just so cool. Again, a factory setting, we get some answers to the scars, and ultimately Marcus Wright saving John Connor, and it's another theme of what does it mean to be human? Even though he's like this ghost in this machine type of person, what does it mean to be a human being? And he goes through a redemption arc in this film, and I think it just has such a great story. But the action's great, it's shot very well, very gritty, has that kind of like decolorized look. They actually messed with the film negative to make it just kind of go crazy. So they actually kind of toasted it a bit to give it that look, and that's very cool that they did that. It's before Mad Max Fury Road. John Connor. Christian Bale's a great actor. I just thought he would do more with John Connor. Instead, he sounds like Batman. Win or lose, this war ends tonight. Do it, you son of a bitch. Like, stuff like that. He sounds like Batman. But Sam Worthington is a standout here as Marcus Wright. This is probably his best performance to date. Anton Yelchin again as Kyle Reese is fantastic. You have Michael Ironside there, Helena Bonham Carter. Skynet is kind of giving more of a collective vibe. They kind of feel like the Borg from Star Trek The Next Generation in this. But if I have to give Terminator Salvation a score, I give it a B+, a 3.5 out of 5, and an 8 out of 10. It's not the best Terminator ever, but for an action film, it's quite enjoyable, and it's one of the better Terminator sequels, at least in my opinion. I know there's some people who don't like this film, but I thought it was a better sequel than Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, and I actually like that movie. It's just a shame that we never got to see a follow-up to this, or T3, or any of the movies, really. All the sequels had good ideas. Maybe they could have been better executed, but you never had a follow-up. And I feel like if you had a follow-up to this with the laser weapons and everything and Christian Bale, it would have been good. Now, of course, you did have the on-set "Get Out of My Light" controversy with Christian Bale. And maybe that had a factor into future installments, but that was kind of crazy. But I can kind of see how he's intense in this. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy hearing the backstory of that. But McG treated the material with great respect, and as a fan of all the Terminators, especially the first two films, I really like this movie. It's an enjoyable movie for what it is. So yes, a 3.5 out of 5, a B+, and an 8 out of 10. If you haven't seen any of the Terminator films or Terminator Salvation, I highly recommend them. And if you have seen Terminator Salvation, let me know, what do you think of this film? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Just let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, click the like button, comment, and subscribe for more videos.